So in this video, I'm going to be giving you guys a full detailed review on the Omega arm wrestling equipment and a comparison. I have companies here such as Omega arm wrestling equipment, Gripzilla, Armmax, we have Masero, and we have the infamous Ezreal arm wrestling equipment. I'm gonna be doing a full comparison with all these tools, giving you guys the details, what I think of them, the differences between them, and which one would I recommend to you guys. So because Omega arm wrestling equipment and I have partnered up together, I figured it would be a really great idea to compare their tools versus the other competitors. And I figured it would be a perfect opportunity to start with the Masero versus Omega. Let's just go with the first initial thoughts of both companies. Now, obviously, as you can tell by probably the condition of this, you guys can see it's a 3D printed cupping tool. Overall, it's not bad stuff. Just the quality of the strap. You get your plastic buckle, and then of course your metal piece to hang it. So you have this guy here, which is a very, very nice smooth surface. Keep in mind it's been used. And then we have the famous Omega arm wrestling handle as well. Let's take a little bit of a closer look. So the Omega arm wrestling handle, as you guys know, it's obviously an extremely good tool for hook. So let's just start with the Omega. First initial impressions, the grip, much better. It's also, well, it's not it looks like it's one solid piece, but it's not. It's this kind of the same thing here. You have one solid piece in the middle with a very good grip. It smoothens out, and then right on the ends, it seems like the 3D printed pieces are glued in, I would assume. But let's just get a feel. It's not bad at all. Let's give the Masero one the comparison. Obviously, you can tell these are not the same tool. You have a wrist wrench, and then I don't know what you'd want to call this, but let's just call it a forearm cupping tool. They kind of look the same, but they're not. This one directly challenges your fingertips and obviously your cupping. Then we go to the Masero one, which immediately you can tell it's much bigger. So yeah, just looked in length. I'll show you guys after. Let's just give this a shot. So this is very different, right? You gotta come under with your, see how far I am already? But what I like to do with the Masero one as well is I just turn it, I roll it, and then I come in, I get my grip right underneath, and it becomes the same tool at this point. Yeah. Initial thoughts in comparison to these, who is better, Masero or Omega? So, the pros to the Masero. First of all, the actual handle, it's thicker. The Omega, not so much. Because I'm someone with a bigger hand, I definitely prefer the bigger cylinder. However, the quality, if we're talking in terms of quality, Omega, by far, the grooves in it, the grip, so much stronger. In terms of the look, I mean, you be the judge. I like this one more. I like the Omega. In terms of actual, maybe like the durability, well, I can't obviously tell you in terms of full durability, but if I were to put my money on it, I have to go with the Omega. One, not only just because it's newer, but look, yeah, and it didn't take long for this to snap when I did get the handle. I've had this handle for 4 years, so you kind of really can't compare, as this one is much newer. However, durability, quality, I have to give it to the Omega. Now, like I was mentioning before, they're not the exact same tool. You have to alter this one. But if I'm going company versus company, which one would I get? Personally, I would rather the wrist wrench. And this one you can convert into a wrist wrench. However, I do believe now that Masero does offer the wrist wrench. Okay, so let's go with the Wrist Max. You guys have seen this one before. And let's also go for essentially the same thing, but from Omega arm wrestling equipment. Initial thoughts on the Omega Wrist Max versus the OG Wrist Max. Let's just get a little bit of a closer look so you guys can actually see the full quality. The original Wrist Max durability, I mean, what you see is what you get. Extremely good quality. The 3D printed Quality of this is just, it's awesome. And then you obviously have your belt that holds your grip here. It's a fairly decently sized handle. I'll hook it up here. And then we have essentially the same thing, but from Omega. And let's just make sure that the focus is in on this. So you can see, same concept. The quality looks legit in my opinion. And then of course the handle on it. I mean, it's brand new. What more can you ask for? But it's very good. So let's put them to the test. Like I said, I have big hands. So let's just put the hands in. Now, keep in mind, the one that Omega had sent me, the handle was obviously much larger. This one that I've owned for quite a bit of time, it's one of two models, and this one, unfortunately, well, for myself, it's much smaller. So when I'm gripping up on this, you guys will be able to see my whole hand here. It pretty much comes right off the middle of this thing. I have to actually move my elbow on this. It's nice, however, because, and this is my own fault, when I did purchase the Arm Max, I did buy it a little bit too small. Since then, my hands have grown. Very sarcastic. Now, I got extremely lucky that I received the larger handle, which only comes to my benefit. Let's feel this one up. Initial thoughts. Which one is truly better? Seriously, which one is truly better? So this is what they look like. A little bit of a gap. Obviously this one's thicker, it's larger. In terms of grip, well, it's hard to argue as of right now that the Omega arm wrestling one is worse. In fact, it's much better. When you're actually cupping the tool with your fingers, you don't really feel like it's too difficult. It's too strong. The wrist max is nice as well because it's extremely smooth. In terms of quality, do I prefer the metal piece or the belt? Honestly, it doesn't bother me at all. Just different mechanism, same concept, does the exact same thing. So yeah, in terms of these two, I mean, do I prefer the metal piece or do I prefer the strap? It does the exact same thing. It's the same concept. I mean, just different material, different material. One's pretty much steel, the other one is some type of material. Which one do I really like better? In all honesty, it sounds biased. I think I have to go with the Omega Strength Obsession. For the third tool, we have the Masero versus the completely new Omega Strength Obsession dual handle. You can tell they're not the same tool. Let's just get to it though. So which one do I prefer right off the bat? Do I prefer the single hand or the double hand? To be honest, I like them both. I'm just gonna use them both all the time. Let's just go over the single handle from Masero. A massive, massive handle, which I'll show you here in a sec. Get a good grip. It's just so smooth. It's awesome. Yeah, what more can you say? It's just great. And then let's go with the double handle, this is sick too. Pretty cool. It's pretty cool if you ask me. So which one, if I had the choice and they're you can't really directly say which one you prefer more. Which one would you choose? Would you choose the thicker handle Masero piece, which you can obviously isolate with one arm? Or would you choose the completely all new double handle or dual handle from Omega Strength Obsession? To be honest, I like them both. I will always use both. Let's go over the grip. So the Masero tool, the grip is extremely similar to the Omega. And honestly, I like them both. I don't think I have a preference between this one or this guy right here, the dual handle. One thing I was mentioning, which we're not really hearing right now. Maybe I don't know if it's because the weight's not too heavy, but I have run into issues where I'm working out in a gym and you just hear a massive, massive squeaking noise. I don't know if it's because, which actually, with time, these little screws, which probably won't focus in on the camera, they rust. So, and this material from Masero and obviously from Omega Strength Obsession as well, it's 3D printed and it's literally on a piece of steel or aluminum. I actually don't know. It's literally directly attached. There's no bearing, there's nothing. So at some point, it's just, in my opinion, I think it's too much friction onto the steel. But I mean, who cares? It takes a while for this to wear out. Anyway, getting to the overall prediction of, not really prediction, getting to the overall review of which one do I really like better. Well, I would be lying if I said it was one or the other. I try to think of this like you're in a gym and you are doing some type of bench press. This guy right here would be your dumbbells. This guy here would be your actual barbell. It's nice because you can do way too much weight. You can put way too much weight on it. You can isolate both arms at the same time. Whereas this guy right here, you're obviously limited to your isolation, which honestly is an extremely good thing. The handles on the Strength Obsession, I mentioned this before, the only thing that really draws me back from this tool is the size of the handles. But actually, yeah. But I mean, you can also throw like big thick grips on this. However, the good part about having small handles is you can literally isolate the fingers and you're getting more of that cup. As of right now, there is no clear winner on who is better, either the Masero or the Strength Obsession. I like them both. They both work in their own ways. They both do the exact same movement. One is extremely isolated onto one arm. One, you're essentially isolating both arms at the same time. One you can use vertically, where you're up like this, coming in with your thumb wrapped around. And literally the same thing here. You can put your attachment to a high cable and you can literally do the exact same thing. So as of right now, there is no clear winner. In terms of quality though, I have to give it to Omega Strength Obsession. On to the most, or arguably the most weirdest comparison of all. We are switching it up a little bit. We have the Israel Arm Wrestling Wrist Ball, which honestly at some point was literally my favorite tool I could ever have asked for. It still might be against the Omega Strength Obsession of, well, whatever you want to call this piece of pipe. So why am I comparing these guys? Well, they kind of do the same thing. Let me show you what Omega has come up with. I truly think that these are the first people to actually have come out with something so unique in their own way. With all companies, we tend to see, well, most arm wrestling companies will produce some type of pronation tool that works extremely well. But Omega, for some reason, they come up with the most simplest piece of tool. And honestly, I think it just might be my most used now or favorite tool moving forward. It's extremely easy. You take your thumb, you wrap it in like you're gripping someone's hand, you then come up, you squeeze, and it's just back to the exact same top roll movement. I'm gonna show you guys something here that you might not be able to see from this angle. When I am using this tool and I am putting pressure on, when I go to squeeze, the tool stays in this direction, which means I have essentially a gap here. So when you are a top roller, let's see if I can back up here for a sec. When you are a top roller and you're gripping up and you're squeezing, a lot of the time, if you are someone who has a high top roll and you're trying to roll out, you kind of want a gap here when you're trying to grip up with your opponent. This literally does this. You do not get any pressure on the inside. What's also nice is if I use this tool and I want to, let's just say, I don't know, I get in this position and I want to isolate and hold, and like just right here, this feels so much better from like an arm wrestling standpoint, just gripping in this position, as opposed to what I'm about to get to. Which we are moving on to our second tool, the Ezreal Arm Wrestling wrist ball. This was, still could be, my favorite arm wrestling tool. Let me get to it. The wrist ball is nice because, one, you're going to grip it in some type of a top roll position, and wherever you grip the ball, wherever this strap comes off your hand, that's where the tension is going to be held. But not only is the tension going to be coming off in the direction of the belt, you actually have to squeeze the whole time. So technically speaking, if you're looking to gain maybe more wrist strength, maybe more grip strength, or maybe more of that squeeze, you're definitely gonna wanna go with the wrist ball. But if I go to grip it up and I squeeze and I'm holding it from this position and I go to pull back, well, now because this is rotating, it's trying to pronate me out, but I'm also having to squeeze, I feel a little bit more activation in my bicep. So which one do I like more as of right now? Well, this is another catch-22 because this one right here, it works more that the higher fingers and it works more that cup, let's say cup, but it gives you that isolation towards the front of the hand. Whereas this, you don't really get that. You have to squeeze your whole hand inside. So let me try to place these next to each other without overwhelming you guys here on a camera. If I'm gripping this wrist ball and I'm coming for that squeeze, if I'm gripping this wrist ball and I'm coming in for the squeeze, watch this. You see my whole hand close in on that wrist ball? Now watch what happens when I do the same with this. So I get my grip. So let's see what happens with this. I get my grip and then I go to squeeze and look what happens right there. You don't really get the chance to completely cover your, you don't really get the chance to fully enclose this, and that's just because of the physics of this tool. Extremely, extremely simple, but it works. So back to which one will I use more? Which one do I personally like more? Which company is better? Which one, just what's going on here? In terms of quality, well, I'm gonna have to give it to Ezreal. I think it's self-explanatory. The actual wrist ball itself, it seems to be like some type of a 3D printed, I don't know if this is like plastic or something, but the quality is extremely good. And what's nice too is with time, if I were to try to get a little bit maybe of a zoomed in piece here, this is never ripped out. Well, the problem with other companies, which I'm about to show you, I've had tools break on me literally during a workout. So in terms of quality, I have to give it to Ezreal. Which one is going to become more useful? Probably Ezreal Arm Wrestling, but don't count this one out. If I were to have the choice of having both of them in my bag, I would use them both. The next tool we will be using, it's not an exact direct comparison. However, we are going back to the Masero tool, which is I keep calling them forearm cupping tools. However, depending on how you use this one, it'll activate different parts of your forearm and hand, compared to the famous Gripzilla, which we're about to get to. So like previously mentioned, this guy right here, it's like some type of a cylinder. The front of the tool is much thicker. And what's nice with a tool like this, when you are using it, which I would have to assume most of you guys have used something like this, is wherever you're going to pick up your grip, wherever the biggest part of this cone is where you're really gonna get the most activation. So if I'm in a position like this, I'm off this ready go, 1, 2, 3, squeeze. I don't really get as much of the bottom squeeze as the top, just from a physics standpoint. However, I don't really have a handle for this. I usually bring this to a gym. But the reason why I'm bringing this up is you kind of get somewhat of the same, you get somewhat of the same grip position, but this is more realistic to the hand. So if I were to set this up on a cable, which you know what, I'm actually gonna set up on this. But if you do have the chance, don't ever use a handle that's this thin. Honestly, just get something that's a little bit thicker. This because it's an adapter to other cylinders and tools. I'm gonna use it for right now, but I don't ever use this tool in this way. But let's just pretend for all intents and purposes that this is a cable that you find at a gym. I usually take my Gripzilla grip, I literally slap it onto the cylinder, and then all of a sudden, I put my thumb in, I get my nice grip, and then it's 1, 2, 3. It's extremely straightforward. Now, the only issue that I run into with the Gripzilla grip is when I'm actually gripping this tool and I'm setting it up on an actual cable, when I go to grip, I can only squeeze so much before the tension of this wants to let loose when it's at the top. So just picture this. Let's just pretend for all intents and purposes that I am at the gym. I connect the tool. When this tool starts to come up here, it wants to release. So when I'm in this position and I'm squeezing, I have to be extremely careful that this does not actually come out. And obviously, like mentioned, it's a very thin handle. Don't ever use this. But which one would I prefer more if I were to actually compare one or the other? Well, as you guys know, they're not directly comparable. If you ever get the chance to get your hands on one of these Gripzilla handles, I think it's very useful. It's not something that I use religiously, but I do use it every here and there. Versus the Masero cone and the cylinder, I honestly use these all the time. So in terms of quality, you can't really compare. I'd have to give it to the 3D printed Masero equipment. And in terms of the Gripzilla, it's just a cool extra tool to have in your arsenal. And on to the final tool. Now, please don't ask me what these tools are called because up until this day, I don't know. I just know they work extremely well. All right, we have these two awesome little beasts. We have the Omega arm wrestling equipment handle, the one that I'm always preaching about as of now, against the famous Masero other handle. Yeah, this is what I'm about to get to. So initial impressions, well, to be honest, these are one of the tools I use a little bit more, and that's just because when I am setting these guys up, I get that high hook position or like a defensive top roll. So when I'm going to grip up for one of these tools, I usually just roll her up like you're supposed to, get my high hand, and then I'll come in and I'll do my reps right from this position, which gives me that inner hook or top roll, defensive top roll. And the exact same thing with this guy. Now, as you could probably tell, and I'm about to show you, I'm not purposefully breaking this, but this is, yeah, it's not good. Which is very unfortunate. So, in terms of quality, while we can probably just knock this one out, as I'm not gonna sit here and shit on Masero because frankly, they make really awesome equipment, but you guys can just tell that this equipment is kind of broke, and this did not take much. I had this tool for several years now. However, it did break about 2 years ago, and it literally just sits in my bag and floats around. The Omega arm wrestling piece, however, I obviously have recently got, and just from looking at it alone, you can tell that this is not cheap. Obviously, it's 3D printed, so it is what it is there. However, it's extremely good quality. It doesn't seem like it's going to break, at least from what I'm looking at. And it's extremely durable. Like, this is not a cheap piece of equipment where you're playing with it and it looks like it's about to break. It genuinely feels extremely strong. So in terms of durability, immediately, self-bias, I have to give it to the Omega Strength Obsession equipment. Which one do I prefer? Well, I'm obviously going to choose this one as well. I mean, it sucks because I really like Masero, but if I were to give an overall win, I have to give it to these guys. But I do want to say a massive thank you to Omega Strength Obsession Arm Wrestling Equipment for partnering up with myself. It's been an honor to actually be able to see the tools finally, to not only see it through Instagram and YouTube and some of the legends like Alex Cordecha using this stuff, but to actually get my hands on it and to play around and to now add it into my arm wrestling equipment arsenal. arsenal. But I just want to say a big thank you. Honestly, thank you guys so much. I honestly greatly appreciate it. I am now going to use this stuff seriously all the time. I'll be using this probably realistically 2 times a week, and I genuinely think this is going to make me a much better arm wrestler, of course, with consistency. But yeah, that's an overall review of the Omega arm wrestling equipment and just a video comparison on these guys in comparison to the other brands that I have been using for the last couple of years. If you guys found this video informative by any means or you found any value out of it, please consider liking. Go give these guys a follow, or if you have any chance, seriously, or the extra cash, spend the money, pick it up. I'm telling you, and this is not just to promote the brand. I genuinely think these guys, they're good. They're honestly extremely good. So if you found any value or if you like the video at all, seriously like the video. Consider subscribing, please. It helps. It's a way of supporting the channel for free. And I'll catch you guys in the next one. Until then, peace.